Hi, this is Darren from SimNation again. I want to do a quick video on recruiting in draft day sports college football. A couple people have asked for it. I will tell you that this is a topic that I think Wolverine Studios has done a pretty good job of covering before. And I'll show you some links and other things to their material. There's some other folks out there who have done some as well. Shark, who is in our league, has done a video, and he covers some of this extensively. I've also done some videos. I just haven't done a dedicated video on it. For those of you not aware, I'm not only a coach within the SNCFL, which is SimNation's Draft Day Sports College Football 2023 League, but I'm also the commissioner. I coach three teams in the league. I bring this up because it'll be kind of relevant as I go through this, as to how I go about doing recruiting. I coach Maryland, who is a high prestige team, relatively easy to recruit though. But there's still some nuance there that I'll cover about high prestige teams. Washington State, who's a middle prestige team. They are actually a team that used to be kind of lower prestige, and over the last couple of seasons, I've brought them up pretty well. Mostly using a lot of the tips and tricks I'll talk about in this video. And then there's LSU, who's a bottom feeder. Um, how I recruit with a low prestige team with no depth is pretty much a challenge, and I will say that if you're in that circumstance, have patience. It's going to take a little bit to get it right. You may start to see success in the first or second season, but it'll still take a little bit of time. I'm not going to show you SNCFL, um, mostly just because we're into week 7 or 8 already, and a lot of the recruiting is already formed. Um, so let's just dive straight in. So whenever I take over a team, regardless of whether it's an existing league, a new league, or whatever that is, a team that has low prestige, mid prestige, high prestige, I generally do the same things. One of the things I focus in on is I focus on the team. So that's the roster. I focus on what the prestige is, what is the conference prestige, uh, and then where do I have gaps, where do I have playing time, and then what type of system I want to run. So all this is very relevant in recruiting because your roster will actually dictate what you recruit for. The style of play will also dictate what you recruit for. Um, Prestige and conference prestige are important because they are specific items within the recruiting journey. Um, and I'll show you as we dive in, but one of the first things that you should always look at is what is your prestige? So in this case, Maryland's is 65. Not bad, not great. What it means is I'm going to be able to recruit probably solidly from the 400 and up crowd. I'm probably not going to get many 5 stars. I may get one or two 4 stars who are in the top 300, but really the 200 to 300 range. Unless, of course, that person just prefers location and prefers something about the team. But when you start with mid prestige, you have a lot more openings. You can start from 400 and all the way up to 2000, and it opens up your ability to recruit really good 3 stars. When you start with a team that has a prestige less than 60, uh, definitely one that has less than 50, you're going to want to recruit the what I call the 900 and above. So that's any recruit who is 900 and above. Now, a lot of people say, well, you can't really recruit well there. It's not true. Actually, Maryland started there. Washington State has lived there for the last few seasons, and they've won the Pac-12 multiple times. Made it all the way to the made it all the way to the final in SNCFL. LSU recruited pretty well there last year. There's a lot of good options there, and what you'll find is in most leagues there aren't a lot of people recruiting that area because it's a little bit harder to recruit it because It's not as easy as the higher end ones where you're given a lot of details and a lot of information. So what I will say is prestige, we just talked about that, but if you want to know your conference prestige, you can go to standings, um, choose the conference. In this case, Maryland's in the Midwest 10, Big 10. And this number right here is your conference prestige. Why is this important? There is a thing called market size within recruiting, and I'll show you once we're in there. That is one of the different criteria that recruits evaluate you against. When you're talking market size, you're talking your prestige plus the conference prestige. So if you're in a low conference, you have a conference that has low prestige, um, and you're trying to recruit against like the Midwest 10. So let's just say you're in the Sun Belt, uh, 46. If someone values market size, you're not going to win that battle against a Midwest 10 team. Now, there's multiple factors involved and other things where you could, but traditionally, you're just not going to win it if market size matters the most. Same thing with prestige. If you're going up against a higher prestige team, let's just say it's Penn State in this case. If I were to look at Penn State, and by the way, I'm not a big fan of Penn State, so I'll try to hold off on that one. But say have 82 prestige, they're beating me by like 17. I'm not going to win recruiting battles against Penn State based on prestige. And in fact, if I see that a recruiter is really seriously looking at them, I'm probably going to back off. Um, so all that's important. Now we talk about roster. Roster is important for two things. One, it tells you what you have, and in the case of recruiting, what you'll have next year. So if you have lots of seniors, you're going to have lots of scholarships open up next year. You're going to probably have lots of playing time, and playing time will be something that you can play to your advantage. Um, Whereas if you have a lot of freshmen and sophomores and they're all really good players, it's just say you're on the higher end of prestige, right? Uh, you're going to have a harder time recruiting people who care about playing time because you have great players and they're just not going to want to come because you don't have many opportunities. Now, will you'll be able to score people as if they care about security, loyalty, they don't care about playing time, but they care about prestige. Um, but just be careful with that because the more people you bring in that are high caliber means someone is sitting. If someone is sitting, then you're likely going to run into some issues with people transferring. So I've already looked over this roster and I've already done some recruiting in this sandbox. But when I look at it, if I look at my quarterbacks, and we'll just start there and I'll kind of give you the lay of the land, is I have two seniors and I have two sophomores. Face value, I'm going to have to recruit two quarterbacks because I need to have at least four just to deal with injury issues. It's Maryland, so I may want to have five. For those of you who don't remember, Maryland was in a situation where they had all their quarterbacks go down one year and they were playing a linebacker at quarterback. And unfortunately, I think that was when Stephon Diggs was still there. But anyways, so I can offer playing time, but I have a problem with playing time. I have this guy named John Willis. John Willis is a good quarterback. Uh, a recruit might look at him and say, I don't think I can beat him out for the position. And if I care about playing time, I'm not going to really gravitate towards Maryland. Now, he's not that great. It still looks at overall and it looks at the ability to play. So in his case, because Bellamy is graduating, so is Freeman, I may be able to get some people, but likely I'm not going to get a 5-star. I'm not going to get a 4-star. So what I'm going to try to focus on is a solid 3-star who has the traits of a gunslinger or has the traits of a mobile quarterback or has the traits of any of the other ones out there. I forget what it is, but I think it's Clutch QB and a couple other ones. Um, Now, I want to run a RPO, so I need to have a quarterback that can actually run. That is not either of the two options I have because they both are slow. They also, I mean, Willis has some decent agility, but he's not going to do all that well. His hands are pretty bad too. So because I want to recruit for an RPO, as I recruit, I'm going to want to look for someone who has athleticism. And even better if I can find someone as a flag for mobile QB and has a good arm. So I'm going to keep these in the back of my mind as I'm going through the recruiting. So as you can see over here is I've done a quick notepad, right? And I kind of called out what I need at each position. So I'm not going to go through every position here. But based on my analysis of like what I just did, I know I need two quarterbacks. I want a running quarterback. I need two running backs. I'm going to focus on speed and all purpose because I have good solid inside runners, but I don't have outside runners and I don't have people who can catch out of backfield, which are important ingredients to an RPO. I need a four back. I'm gonna look in the three-star category because it's not that glaring of a need. I don't really need a guard. I have guards and they're serviceable. But if I can find one that's a good all around, meaning they can pass and run block, I'm going to try to get one. Centers, I do need one. I may need two actually because maybe the guy who would be the backup isn't all that good. So I'm going to look for all around. Again, we just talked about that. Tight end, I need speed. That means I have blocking down. I have great blockers, but I don't have people who can catch and be fast. Wide receivers, I don't need many of them. I think I have like 10. With graduation, I'll have 7. I'd like to have 8. So I'm going to go after one, but I would prefer them to be agile because I have speed. Agile, of course, is important in the short game and also in running some of the interior routes. Um, Quarterback, I need 3. I may need 4, and I need fast ones because the ones I have on this team aren't very fast. Linebacker, I need 1 to 2, really 1. Again, I'm going to focus on speed and tackling because I think I have good interior linebackers who are good at tackling and good at point of attack, but they are not good at pass defense. And I'm intending to run a 3-4, or 3-3-5. So I need to make sure I have at least 2 linebackers who have solid skills when it comes to pass defense. Defensive tackle, really don't need any, but I want to go after a speed guy, which means I have great tacklers and I probably have good strong people. But what I'm lacking for is speed, and that's kind of that pass push. I don't need any defensive ends. I have them up the wazoo, and I've got good ones. Free safety, again, I need coverage, free safety, so I need speed. Strong safety, I need coverage, strong safeties. For those you know how to will, I tend to play strong safety less around tackling and more around throwing coverage. Um, I need a punter and I need 2 kickers. Now, kickers you're not going to invest heavily in, punters you're not going to invest heavily in. The CPU, if you put them on auto, loves to recruit kickers. I had one time where I ended up, well, I got 5 kickers in a cycle, which brought me up to 10 kickers. I don't need that many guys, right? So I end up having to cut them, which will hurt me in the long run in some regards because the challenge with recruiting is any cutting that you make during the season, you're not getting dollars back to recruit new people for that position you cut. So if you're going to cut, you need to make sure that you have enough dollars in order to cover the cuts you're making because they're not going to give you more. So generally speaking, I like always, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'll finish this. So what I've also called out here is just a reminder, I have 21 scholarships. I'll show you how I got to that. My prestige is 65. My conference prestige is 74. This is a brand new league, so no one has a record. Make sure that you capture your record over the last 10 seasons in 2 ways. One is the last 2 or 3 seasons and your record this season. It's really 3 ways, and then capture the 10-year period. The reason why this is important is when you gauge winning, it's not just this season, it's not just last season, it's actually over a period. And I found that a period of 5 to 10 years is actually a good thing about your chances of getting someone who cares about winning. I talked about conference prestige. Playing time, I will denote in playing time where I have depth opportunity, and also normally I don't have depth opportunity, meaning that I have the people to make the game work, but I have opportunity because my people suck. Um, so playing time again is not just that you have an open slot for someone to come in and play right away, meaning that there's no one else there for it. It also means that whoever you're recruiting is better than who you have. so you can offer playing time because the auspice is they'll be able to come in and beat that person. So I've called that out, and so now the quick thing is staff. Staff matters in recruiting, matters pretty heavily, in fact. So what you want to do is make sure you understand your staff. In this case, I've got some decent recruiters, right? Will Cox, who's my head coach, is almost 3 stars in most categories. So what that means is when we do the scouting, I can actually trust him. If you got a guy who's got 1 star in your scouting, you're going to have to go to the 420 points because you're not going to be able to trust that dude. Whereas with him, I can probably take most people to 10, and I'm going to be able to trust that he's largely going to be accurate. If it's 5 stars, I talk about Nestor Laney at Maryland in the SNCFL. He's a God coach. Um, he has 5 stars in almost everything. So when Nestor, there have been years where I've just said, I'm going to 5 points in scouting, and I'm going to trust Nestor, and he hasn't really led me astray in some time. I did try 1 point once, and I'll tell you, don't do that, even if you have a 5 star guy, because last season I did that with one guy, and it turns out he's a bust. Um, Now, if you notice that Jamie Doan is not a good recruiter, and if I remember correctly, now it's Jason Corbin. So I'm going to be relying on my head coach. If I see anything from my OC or my DC around ratings, I'm just going to throw it out because they suck. And I don't want to know anything about what they care about. I do want to understand their systems though. So 3-4 hybrid, that's the reason why I made that decision. And then when you look at Jamie Doan, vertical hybrid, which RPO is a vertical hybrid of a sort. So kind of got that. So now I'm going to go into recruiting. For transparency, I've already assigned all scholarships and stuff, and I'll talk about how I do this. Mostly because I wanted you to be able to see some things. Um, so I do look at this, the position overview, and what I'm looking for is to make sure that I have enough targets and I have enough offers to map back to my seniors. Now, I didn't talk about this in roster. If you have juniors and you have redshirt juniors, if they're really good, I would plan to recruit for the fact that they're going to leave to go to the pros. If you have people who are unhappy with playing time, I would plan for the fact that they're going to transfer, and I would recruit for that position. Just because there's a good chance that they are going to leave. Now, back to the staff real quick. If you fire any member of your staff during the season, just be aware if someone decided to commit to you based on security and loyalty, and I'll show you that in a second, you got a good chance that they're going to decommit on you. Because security and loyalty is based on coaching staff. And if you fire a coach, especially your head coach, there's a strong chance you're going to lose that person. And Rutgers last season saw that. They fired their head coach, and uh, they had a top 300 player decommit. So again, I'm looking at this, and this is just a quick way for me to be able to say, this is what I currently have. This is the seniors I have. This is what I'm targeting. Targeting doesn't mean I've offered them a scholarship. It just means that I'm kind of interested in them. Offers is what I've offered, and then of course, as we go through the season, commits. Now, recruiting takes time. If you don't have the time for it, you can put everything on CPU. The general warning I will give you is if you set the CPU, set it early, leave it on. And then make the decision about what you have time for. Like for me, when don't have time because maybe I'm carrying 4 teams because I'm testing out some new things, what I may do is flip on recruiting, delegate scouting, but leave delegate outreach with me controlling it. I believe outreach is very important, and I don't like the computer controlling it. I'm not really a big fan of the computer covering scouting either because they don't scout. Or they don't scout effectively, which means if at any point if you flick that back over, you're just not going to have a lot of information. You're going to be so far behind, it's just not going to help. So at the beginning of the season, decide whether you have the time to recruit or not. And if you have the time, go ahead and do it yourself. If you don't have the time, look at maybe do you have enough time to delegate the recruiting and the scouting, but keep the outreach, or just delegate it all. But if you delegate it all, don't change mid-season because you're going to find that you're going to be stuck with really bad players and you're going to miss a lot. Pipelines are important because pipelines are where your coaching staff has made inroads into those states, and you get added benefit from having those coaches in those states. So it doesn't really help me because I have Montana. There's not a lot in Montana, and I'm in Maryland. It's a long way away. But DC is important, so is Vermont, so is South Carolina. Unless you're in California or on the West Coast, I would tell you traditionally I don't recruit California. Now, in Maryland, I do, mostly because California is home to two big schools already, maybe three depending on your league. Traditionally, USC, UCLA, and Stanford. Um, it's like Texas. It's a really hard state that if you're not in that state or near that state to recruit that state. So because you'll find that if they care about location at all in your Maryland and you're way on the other side of the country, you're just not going to get them. So let's go in and take a look here. So the first thing that I always do is whenever I start, I go into recommended players. And people have asked me, so I go in and I immediately look at quarterbacks. I'm just going to use quarterbacks as an example because I need two of them. If it's week one, this is the most important thing that you can have. If you're a low prestige team, do not go after anybody that has more than one. Stay with zeros if you can, or go to with ones. Try to find the diamonds in the rough and try to be on people who are not being over recruited. If you're a top prestige team, you may not really care about this, honestly. Now, what I will tell you is if it's week 8 or 9, it's not a good idea to go after the one that has 17 offers. That dude's probably already made his choices. And you trying to come in and steal him at the last moment, unless you meet exactly what they're looking for, it's just not going to happen. Now, I say that, and routinely at Maryland, I'm able to scoop in week like 10 or 11 and steal somebody. But that's again because I've done the recruiting on the front end. I know what they care about because I've scouted them and I've also done interviews. And as a result of that, I'm able to say, look, they care about prestige, and let's just pick on somebody. Iowa's recruiting them. I'm 20 points higher than Iowa. I can steal this guy from them, and I routinely do. But I've done the math to know that I can get away with it. Um, and normally I'm doing that because something else has fallen through. Like a couple years ago, I had an issue where the quarterback I wanted committed to a different school. I really needed a quarterback, so I pivoted and jumped on this other guy, and I was able to steal him away from another Big Ten school that I won't name because that may still be a sore spot for them. Um, and I was able to recruit them and get them. And then they wrote the bench for the next 3 seasons because I over recruited and got the number one ranked recruit in a quarterback. So I tend to over recruit people when I'm a big prestige program. When I'm a low prestige, I'm really focused on bringing in better players than what I have on my roster. So it is possible for me to recruit over somebody from a previous season, but that's not going to normally be the rule. So offers, low prestige, the mid prestige, keep it to 0 or 1 if you can help it. Otherwise, high prestige you really don't kill. So what I'm looking for here is when I first come in, is I'm looking at this. Now I want to be careful with this, right? Because I haven't put any emphasis on scouting yet for this guy. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt that this guy may or may not be what I'm looking for based on these grades. A C means he's average, and that means he's somewhere wherever the average is for quarterbacks in in this league. Athleticism, B means he's above average. D means he's below average. So again, for instance, if arm strength it shows up as a C and the average in your league for arm strength is 70, it means he's somewhere in around 70. If it's an A, it means it could be an 80, it could be a 90. So just bear in mind that whether it's average or the other ones, traditionally what it's trying to tell you is he average, above average, well above average, is he below average, and is he really sucky? Um, So I'm looking at these, and it's not uncommon for me just to cycle through. Like if I was at a higher prestige, I'd be like, wow, I really like this guy, and I'm gonna go after him because he's got athleticism A plus, which means he's gonna be fast. But I'm not a high prestige thing, and I'm not gonna be able to. I also read this, and it kind of gives me an idea of some of the things about him. I also can see he's being recruited by Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. They're both higher prestige teams than me, so I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind if I had scouted him. So what I want to do though is I'm going to pivot off this and I'm going to really talk about who I'm going after. So the first thing I look at is my scholarship offers at quarterback, and I've already done some of the things on him. And if you look at this, he's not bad for what I'm looking for. His agility is not great, but his speed is decent, and he's got intelligence. And overall, he's not a bad thrower. Um, Now, Jim Sykes, I haven't done the interviews yet. I do know for a fact that Jim Sykes is a gunslinger because I've played this out over 3 or 4 weeks. The way you would see that would be right here. Until you interview them, though, this is NA. Once you interview him, it would pop up and say he's a gunslinger. And generally, I'll tell you, depending on what you're looking for, if you see certain flags and traits, you want to go after those people. So if you're going with a heavy pass first offense, you're going to want to go after a gunslinger. Or if you're going for a running offense, you want to go after a mobile quarterback. If you want a person who just won't make mistakes, look at clutch, and so on. But this guy's got a good arm. That's why I'm going after him. His speed is average, which isn't bad. He's got good hands. So kind of moving back to this, let's get off quarterback. Um, and go to actions. So this is where the heart of the thing happens. So the way I approach recruiting is simple. And I do this whether it's low prestige or high prestige. To me, the first week is most important to do all my scouting. So I will literally go down the line and give everybody one until I run out of money. And then I will start interviewing people with the money that I have left. But I think it's very important for you to scout because when you scout, this becomes this. And this gives you a good idea of what you're going after. Now, when you interview someone, so week 2 and week 3, I'm trying to interview everyone I can because what I'm trying to now figure out is what do they care about. So when I look at this guy, he's already targeting Virginia Tech. He values playing time. Remember back over here on the guard. Uh, I don't really have it. I can't offer him playing time. He values market size, that's conference prestige. He's in the ACC, though equitable. He values loyalty, not really much. This is a guy I have no chance of getting. So, what I would be doing and what I will do is I will go back and I'm backing off of him. And I'm not going to outreach him. I'm not going to offer him a scholarship. I forgot to hide him first, of course. So, before you take the scholarship, I'll fix that in a second. And then I'm going to go to Shane Fahey. Again, because I've interviewed him, I kind of know what he is. This guy looks pretty good. As a running back, I probably want to go after him. He's in Pennsylvania, so dollars to donuts. Penn State's recruiting him. He values loyalty. That's good for me. He values winning. Maybe. And he values prestige. So if Penn State jumps on this dude, I'm backing off. And the reason why is I'm not going to be able to compete against him because while he values loyalty, he does not value security. Value loyalty and security means that they are if those both of those are high, you can stay on a person until they commit, and you have a good chance of being the one they commit to because you stayed on them. So when we look at the things, how these map, and I've talked about this, prestige is your prestige. Security is how long you have been on them, plus is there security with your coaching staff. So if you fire your coaching staff, and this was like in 80, the dude's not coming. Values loyalty, again, you're staying on them and you have staff that is the same and will be the same throughout the process. Winning is, again, like I mentioned, your record this year plus the 5 to 10 years record. Playing time is, do you have a opportunity for them to play right away? Whether that is that they are better than the players you have, or whether or not you have open positions. Close to home means that it means exactly what it is. He's in Pennsylvania. If he valued this, I would have a decent chance because Maryland's within 200 to 300 miles of home. Um, if it's more than 200, 300, I will tell you that you probably don't got a chance with that guy. So if he was actually in California, valued close to home, higher than everything else, then I have no chance with him. Market size, we talked about this. This is really conference prestige. And then, of course, these things matter because this tells you about the character of the person. Um, so once I know these things, I can start choosing hill what I'm going to put value on. I traditionally would tell you try not to put zeros in, but if you're going to, and let's just say someone has something really, really low, like 8. If prestige was not 54, I would just say, you know what? I can just do this because it doesn't matter. But prestige is 54, so I can't do that. There's really not anything I can kick out, so he's going to be stuck at 1 for a while. So I have a shot at him. I'm not confident in him. And then if we look at Boogie, I'm recruiting him just because of his name. So Boogie values playing time. I look over Hill, maybe. Values close to home. He's in Maryland. I'm Maryland. Perfect match. Values market size. That's conference prestige. I'm in good shape there. Values winning. Maybe. And values security. So, but he values prestige. So, the challenge I'm gonna have with Boogie is if anybody of note goes after Boogie that is high prestige, because that is a 93, I am likely gonna lose Boogie. So I just got to keep that in mind. Right now, nothing's showing. I think I have a good chance. I'm going to continue to recruit them. So, the first 2 to 3 weeks, what you're really trying to do is scout everybody, interview everybody, try to understand who you can stay on and who you're going to drop off of. The key here is because of loyalty and security, you want to try to get locked in on somebody as fast as you can and stay on them, especially if that's what they value most. If they don't value it, it doesn't really matter. But the first 2 to 3 weeks, I'm entirely focused on making sure I spend at least 1K here to get a good idea, and then I'm gonna ramp it up. But making sure that I'm really getting my interviews in. From a recruiting spend, the way I operate is if they are must have, I give them 10K. If they're nice to have, I give them 5K. If they're just someone I'm interested in and I want to see where it goes, I may give them 1 to 2K depending on what I have. Um, and then again, outreach is important because outreach is what you're doing to meet with them. So I've talked about this before, is depending on what you're doing in week 1, and if I go back and I take a look, week 1 I'm at home, so I can offer home games. Um, so normally what I would do is, and I mean actually in week 2 am away, so I'm not going to invite people to the game in week 2 because I'm not at home. Now here's the important thing about inviting home games. Traditionally, it is better to try to invite higher ranked people if you're a lower or mid prestige team to games after week 4 or week 5 because the bigger, more high prestige teams have probably already invited them. Just because you invite them to a game doesn't mean they're going to show up. So you want to really try to use that because you lose these points, right? You really want to try to make sure you focus on inviting them to a game when you think they will actually show up. Um, because it's just not a guarantee that they will actually show up. I kind of wish they would tell you whether or not so you can reallocate the points. But definitely don't invite people to games if you're away. It's just not. So normally what I do is if I'm low prestige, I do what I call right to left. So I try to get as many people on the phone as I can. In week 1, I may try to invite a few people to the game. So I've already allocated all my points, but I think I have like 15. So what I may do is like make phone calls to like maybe uh, 9 people, or yeah, like 9 people that I want to that are the scholarship targets, and then do facility tours for 2 of them. And then again, you can play the math, right? If I have 15 and I want that to be 3, then I would just say that I'm making 6 phone calls and then leaving 9 points for the 3 people who I want to do facility tours. And every week, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to ramp this up. So I did phone calls last week for Boogie and Anthony, and this week I'm doing facility tours. Next week, because I'm back at home, I'm going to invite them to a game. Then the week after that, I'm going to attend a high school game, and then I'm going to home visit them probably the week after that to try to really get them as quickly as possible. And again, it's just a scale, right? That you keep doing that. The problem with home visits, I would almost say try to spread those out. Only do one unless you're a high prestige team and you got the points it can do two. But if you don't, like Maryland in this case, I'm only going to do one home visit per week because that's all I can afford while still doing a lot of other outreach. If I'm a high prestige team, I kind of flip this model on its head. Uh, if this was Maryland in the SNCFL, I start with a home visit. And then I may like do a home visit for Shane, and then everyone else is getting a phone call or facility tour or being invited to the game. So if week 1 I'm at home, it would be 2 home visits, and then I would spread the rest of the points out over invite the game. And then the following week I would invite the game if I'm at home. If not, then I'm gonna do facility tour, and then I go left to right because most of the people I'm recruiting are not gonna commit early, so I'm gonna have time to outreach and I can beef those points up quickly. But if you're low prestige, I would say go right to left, where you start with the phone, then go to the facility tour, then go to game, invite the game, then attend high school game, and then home visit. And that traditionally has helped me to nail a lot of different recruits. Washington State is off the charts this year with signing people, and I'm using that approach with them. So that's kind of it. And then over the course, you want to keep an eye on interest. If you do all this stuff and say by week 4, this guy's interest isn't changing, and again, we talked about Andrew Friend is I'm gonna hide him because I'm not offering him. But let's say by week 4, Shane Fahey has not changed out of none or changed to cool. I would say that unless he's loyalty and job security, back off of him. You have no chance with him. And then as time goes by, you're going to really want to keep your focus on the warm and the hots. Um, and again, in this case, I'm really looking for people who I can steal at the um, 3-star level. So I've got a couple in here that I'm pretty confident are going to be pretty good. Like this guy will be decent. I'm trying to remember the one guy. Sykes, I really believe Sykes is going to be decent. Um, so I'm going to try to go out of my way to keep Sykes. Over time, Boogie actually in the future Sims gets up to warm. Now I'll tell you, uh, I go on a 3-game losing streak, and Boogie decides to go to Ohio State. Because the whole time I can't see that Boogie is flirting with Ohio State. He Dwayne Haskins me, and at the end of the day, he goes elsewhere. So that's kind of recruiting in a nutshell. It does take time. You're going to be spending a lot of time taking a look at these people, seeing what they like, adjusting for it as you get more scouting points. I will say make sure that you try to get to 20 on all your scholarship people as fast as you can, or to 10, or whatever that number is you feel comfortable with, because that'll help you to really start going in here and changing these values based on what you're seeing here. Of course, once you do attend a high school game, you get the coach grades. The only one here I would care about would be the head coach. And then, of course, recruit opinions. That happens when you happen with a home visit. And actually, one of the things in there that's important is the developmental capability. So, if you pay attention to that and you get that in, if Boogie comes back and says, hey, look, this guy has subpar development ability, you might want to think about that as you're recruiting him, because what it means he may be a bust. One thing I would tell you is don't recruit for stars. If you recruit for stars, you're going to be very disappointed. If you ever see the flag, hear on the player bio that says diva, just get away from them as fast as you can because they're going to be pretty bad for you in the locker room. And notice here, the reason why I'm going after Fahey is because of this. He's a power runner. Yeah, I know I said I want to go after a speed guy, but having a great power runner is just perfect for goal line scenarios. And again, I'm looking at doing an RPO, so having a power runner is not a bad idea. So that's kind of recruiting in a nutshell. So if I sum it up, right, uh, know your roster, take the time to go through your roster. It may be a good idea just to start here to see what this is, these three, and then go to your roster and then look at things. Identify where you have playing time potential. You need to have better players, and really identify how many you need at each role and what you're looking for. Jot that down on paper. Check, see how many scholarships you have, what your budget is. In my case, I think I had like 218,000, which means I could spend 10 points on 21 recruits. I'm going to recruit more than 21, so that's why I do the 10-5-1 rule. Um, Kickers, I almost by default always give them 1K until I have enough money I can actually give them more, unless I come across like a Sebastian Janikowski, who I'm just going to give him lots of money because he's going to be important. And then just pay attention throughout the recruiting cycle to what's happening and adjust as you need to. But again, the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks is scout everybody, interview everybody, determine who you're getting coming off of. Make sure that if you're hiding people, you're backing out the recruiting, the scouting, and then removing the scholarship or any outreach you have, and then hide them. And then over time, what you should see is that you're going to really start to nab some people. Choose your battles well. If you notice everybody's starting to gravitate towards the guy you've offered and he values winning or other things, and you start to see that go from 0 to 7, the moment also that they start to show that they care about somebody, um, so recruited by, look at that person immediately, see what they have, and then look at what they want from a personality. And if that other guy has it, back off. Um, the only time you really should stay on someone if a bigger player comes into play is if security and loyalty matter. Those are the times where you should stay involved, and you should be looking at pumping up organization to help with that. Really, academics is the one I don't really see many people talk about wanting. It's not one of the personality ratings, but I traditionally watch out for people who have high intelligence to make sure I don't back out of academics. So that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully you find this useful. I'll put some links um, in the video. The last plug I'll make is if you ever want to see the Wolverine Studios, here's a link to the recruiting tutorial. Here's the guides around recruiting and scouting. Um, it's relatively straightforward. I will tell you that at Maryland, how I recruit is different because I don't have a lot of playing time I can normally offer people. So I'm very focused on people who traditionally aren't interested in playing time. They want prestige. Uh, they want to be close to home. They value security and loyalty. I got to hope one of these days Nestor Laney doesn't decide to retire during the season or before the season. But for other places like Washington State and LSU, I am really focused on playing time because I have a lot of it to sell because traditionally I am going to be able to recruit better players than what I have. And we've talked about just what that all means is, again, if you're looking for a mobile quarterback, you really want to find someone who has agility and speed, a serviceable arm and serviceable accuracy and intelligence and skill. Versus if you want a gunslinger, you want someone who has an arm and hopefully you find someone who has accuracy too. Um, Versus a clutch QB is going to be a smart one and you can tailor the offense around them. So that's it for now. Hopefully you see value in this. I realize I was a little bit all over the place, but I'm also trying to keep this short intentionally. I am still going to do the RPO video. It's just taking me a little bit longer because I'm trying to do it right. For those of you who play RPOs, I think the biggest thing I can tell you about the RPO is don't make the natural assumption that all receiving routes are equal. Uh, when you look at a play, you just need to understand that there's some people who are going to be the target 70% of the time, some will be target 5% of the time, and over time you'll begin to understand that and then put the players in the right places. So like a couple of the plays focus on the tight end and wide receiver 4. So what you want to make sure on your depth chart is you got your fastest guy on the tight end, especially if he's playing a fly route, and then you have the appropriate wide receiver at wide receiver 4, which is the backup to wide receiver 1. So that's it for now. Hopefully you'll take a look at SNCFL. We have a great coaching community, lots of active participants in our Slack channel. I'll put the links in the video. And of course, the WWPF is the league that all of the college players move to, which is running on the pro version. They're currently on 22. They are moving to 23 at the end of the season, which is coming up pretty fast because I think they're in the divisional championship games now. Well, it's Peter and the Jaguars, who's a CPU team, and Gary and the Detroit Lions, who's a CPU team. So hopefully it'll be Gary versus Peter, and hopefully Gary can knock Peter off again. But after that, they will move to 2023, so they'll be on the latest. Of course, SNCFL is already on 2023. So have a great night. Thank you for your time. Hopefully you find some value in this. And if you want to ask me any questions, of course, join the Slack chat. I'm always willing to help, or just post something in the video. I don't check it every day. I'm not monetizing this, but I do this more just to help people. So uh, talk to you later, and I will hopefully get the RPO video up this weekend. Thank you.